All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll welcome Howard, Revell and Brian Farley.
Thank you.
Brian, I'd like to ask you a few questions about your speedway career.
All right, yes.
I am a little concerned though, because some of the questions might go back to last century, and at your age you might be struggling to get through these answers. And if you look like nodding off, I'll just give you a little bit of a kick.
Yeah, thanks, Harry. That's good.
How did you get involved in the speedway?
Well, as a kid, as a 10-year-old, I started going to the speedway. I used to live on the north side of Brisbane at Kedrell, and I don't know, I must have saw it in a paper or something, but I decided to go to the exhibition ground. I think I was about 10 then, so I got the tram there by myself, and I don't think I missed a meeting after that. It was just, you know, it was just so good to see. A bit frightening, especially when sidecars come out. I used to watch them through my fingers. But yeah, that's where it started.
So what happened after that? How did you get involved? Did you get into a pit crew, or what happened there?
Yeah, I did. Eventually, I finished school when I was 12, and then I started working on farms out at Mount Walker. The first farm, I worked on that farm for 12 months, and then the second farm that I started work on, I was working for the guy that owned the farm, and about 3 weeks after I started, I remember him saying, "Brian, you haven't got to be out in the paddock working 7 days a week, you can have a day off." I thought, yeah, right, you know, I'm 13, haven't got a car licence or anything. He said, "What would you like to do on a day off?" I said, I remember saying, trying to think of what, I said, I might walk into Rosewood, you know, from the farm at Mount Walker. And he said, "Look, I've got a job that I've got to do on a Saturday," because there was another guy who used to come that I'd help him with doing the dairy work, getting the cows milked and stuff. And the boss said to me, I've got this sporting event I've got to go to on a Saturday. And remember now, I've been going to the speedway before I was on these farms. And he said, "It's a sporting event I've got to go to, and you might want to come with me, you might enjoy it." And I remember thinking at the time, geez, I hope he's not talking about soccer. You know, that's like watching grass grow to me. And I said, "Well, what do you do?" And he said, I'm the chief steward for the Australian Speedway Control Board." He got about those words out, and I was in the F100 waiting to go. But his name was Noel Stitt, and he was the chief steward for all the motorcycle races at the exhibition ground. So that's where it started. And one of my heroes, if you like, when I was a 10-year-old going to the speedway then, they used to run Nats. That was 1955. And then they started with the front engine TQ started to come in, and there was this guy who used to run around in a white and red number 5, and his name was Kevin Wendt. Anyway, that stuck in my mind. So eventually, he was burnt. It must have been about 56. He got really badly burnt. But anyway, we're going now to 1958, 59 it was, and he got me into these pits at the exhibition ground. You know, we had a talk with the guy on the gate and stuff, and he said, "You can walk in the pits, be careful what you're doing, stay out of People's Road," and all this sort of stuff. So in I went, and it was like a kid in a lolly shop, you know. Oh wow, and I was walking around and I saw this white and red number 5. And I plucked up the courage to go over and talk to the driver. His name was Kevin Wendt. And I said, "Oh, Mr. Wendt, my name's Brian Farley." I said, "Any chance I can give you a push?" You know how we used to push them out on the track in those days? So that's where it started. I ended up on Kevin's pit crew, and that was in 59. And later that year he got smashed up pretty bad with Harry Evans's Graham was there, Winton Graham. Graham Fiddler was in the same race. It was a big prank. It was a bad accident. And Kevin went and Harry Evans were taken to the General Hospital. And yeah, it was pretty horrifying for a 14-year-old then to watch. But a guy after Kevin wasn't allowed to race again, he'd already been burnt and his wife had had enough of that. So a guy called Arthur Eichmann took the car over and I pit crewed for him. He did pretty well in the car. I'm from late 59, early 60 to 1962, and I joined the army to learn how to drive the trucks. So I only signed up for 3 years because I should be able, the old man said, you should be able to drive a truck within 3 years. I should do. So that's how I got into Speedway, was through the Noel Stitt.
Okay, so when did you get your first car?
When I got out of the army, I did do 3 years, and the only reason I got out was because I was sent to Malaya in 1963 on operational duties with the British unit over there in aerial delivery. You know, we were throwing stuff, loading aircraft and throwing stuff out the door and all that. And then when I got out of the army in 1965, because the last 3 or 4 months I was in there, we didn't even see an aeroplane. And that's the only reason I got out, because we were all running around bored and the morale was pretty low and all that. But apparently the army ran out of money, what the CO said. Anyway, I got out of the army, but by then I'd already met Ray Platt, a good mate of mine down in Sydney, who was a pretty good TQ driver, and I joined the Sydney TQ Speed Car Club. And I bought a TQ off Max Mann, a guy called Max Mann, and that was they were limited at 500cc down there. And this one had a red under aerial in it, which was pretty specially done motor. But that's how I started. That was in September 1966, is actually when I started racing at Windsor, west of Sydney. But we ran Windsor and Kemlyn Grange, Morisset. We went down to Victoria and ran in Brooklyn and Victoria, the Brooklyn Speedway. And that was another place in Victoria, I can't remember now, but that's when I started in the TQ speed cars down in Sydney. And a couple of times I come up here to the exhibition ground to run during the year.
So how long did you race the TQs for?
TQs, I started in 66, that was in Sydney, but then I come back up to Brisbane in late 69, and I bought the TQ up here, but by then they were called junior speed cars, Graham, weren't they? And a guy called Barry King helped me change the TQ, which is the shorter bodywork, sort of like a little Curtis craft, they were. Oh, that's what they always remind me of. And anyway, we put a longer body on it and pulled the aerial out, 500 aerial in a 650 Triumph Tiger 110. And he did a pretty good job of helping me with fabrication and all that sort of thing with that car. So I ran the TQs, I ran up until say 69, but then junior speed cars 70, 71, and then I joined the Leader Speed Car Club, it was, and for the starters then, because we wanted to go to 1000cc engines. So I had a car that was built for Gary Saker, who never got to drive it, but that had a 105E Anglia in it, 998cc, and I did pretty well in that car. I finished running that car in about 74, and then after, yeah, so I'd sold the Leader speed car then, and then I bought the Renault, Keith Plakarski's car, the Renault Frigate engine in it, I can't remember the number, 96 or something like that, I think. So I ran that car for about 4 or 5 months, but it was a bit of a dog.
That was a speed car.
Yeah, speed cars. And at one time, you'll see in these photos as they're going round, I had driven for a couple of different guys in the leader cars as well, but the Steve Peterson had a midget with a Holden in it, and I ran that just the once. It was a bit of a dog, but he gave me a drive of it, you know, which was pretty good of him. And then I bought Graham Gerhardt, who's a wonderful bloke. I bought his Chevy 2 midget. It was the car that he built in the early 70s with a Mazda in it, but then he put a Chevy 2 in it. And that was a car number 59. It'll come up on the screen at some point. I ran that until about 78, 79. And I worked for Wimp's Tyre and Mechanical for quite a long time as a sales manager there. And from running, I had stopped speedway racing for a year or so, but then I was rung up by a good friend of mine, Billy Palmer, who was pit crewing for Jimmy Holden, and he had bought Ron Wallace's Volkswagen, which is the same car that Gary Rush ran down in Liverpool and stuff. You can always tell this car if you see the pictures. You'll see across the injectors is like aluminium, thick, half-inch thick aluminium bash plates, so you couldn't run into the rocker covers or the injectors and stuff. And that was just absolutely brilliant, that car. And I ran that car until 1983, from about 81 to 83, and that's the best car I'd ever driven out of the whole lot of them.
Now, when you were racing in Sydney, I believe you had a nickname. You were known as the Ace.
Oh, yeah, well, there was a lot of you probably know a guy called, he's passed away now, God bless his soul, is Alan Streeter. And he was in the TQ Speed Car Club. He was the president down there then. A really good fabricator, a great bloke, good mates, all of them down there. Ray Platt, Alan Streeter, Mac Kittle, and quite a few others. The Ace thing, I didn't know who started it, and somebody told me it was Alan Streeter. So I saw Streeter some years ago, and I said, apparently you're the one that called. I said, what did you call me Ace for? I didn't win that many races, you know, I wasn't like you and Platty and all those sort of guys. He said, well, I said, well, why did you call me Ace? He said, well, it's not all about winning, you know. He said, but if there was going to be a crash, yours would be the best of the I've ever seen. I said, oh, bloody great, you know. So anyway, that's where it come from, yeah. Sorry? Oh, that's the Chevy 2. That's after I'd painted it the same colour as Jack Porritt's car from Sydney. It was a yellow thing, but
well,
it was a good tough car, that car.
They used to have a few crashes too.
Yeah, that's the end result of a jam throttle, which I found out why.
Now, when you were running the speed cars in Sydney, what tracks were you running at?
Well, in the TQs.
Speed cars.
Oh, the speed cars. The only car I ran, the speed car that I ran in Sydney was that car, which is the ex-Wanless car. And I ran that at Parramatta on one Friday night. Jimmy had actually hired Archfield because he always had pretty new tyres on it, either Dunlops or Goodyears. But he wanted to change them to Hoosiers and go and run down in Sydney. So he hired Archfield one afternoon through the week, and there's Billy Palmer and Peter Harders and myself went out there to try and sort this handling out and stuff with these tyres. And he backed it into the wall 2 or 3 times, and typical Jimmy went off his brain, you know, he's sitting up on the cage by the time we got over there on the last lot. And he looked me in the eyes, he said, I'm sick of this bloody car. He said, you take it to Sydney. Well, he didn't have to tell me twice. So, yeah, I took it down to Parramatta on a Friday night. We'd organised to go to Parramatta on the Friday night and run on the clay, and then run at Newcastle Motordrome on the Saturday night on the way back. there you can see the bash plates on the car there over the injectors and stuff. They're still there. The car's in New Zealand now. Where was I up to?
The tracks you were running at him.
Yeah, the
I
tracks,
knew you'd
We
go
were
to
in
sleep.
Parramatta was a total waste of time. We just couldn't get the Alan Streeter and Max Kettle give me a hand trying to get shock rates right. Yeah, no dial shocks or any of that. They had 3 settings, soft, medium or hard. But it was a real eye-opener, the clay. I'd never run on that before. I'd never want to run on it again. I remember Keith Hutton was down there and the thing took off like a jet down the straight. I'd passed 2 cars before I got to the first corner, but going around the corner was pretty frightening because it was up on 2 wheels. And the next corner, within a couple of laps, I remember Keith Hutton driving underneath the left front of it with his back wheel. That's how out of shape the thing was, you know. So anyway, that was a bit of a waste of time in the clay. Then we went to Newcastle. I'd never seen the place before, the Motordrome, and we reset a couple of things. And then, so I run at Newcastle, which was a pretty good result there. Yeah.
What happened there? You crash again?
Well, no. No, I didn't crash. I went out in a heat race there, and I think I was second row or something. It was a 6-lap race, the first race, but the place was just a magic to put a car in. You could go anywhere on the track. and I won that race. And Peter Harders, I'd pulled up on the back straight to push it back in the gate and the pits. He come running out and hit me in the head like with his hand. I heard my neck go crack. I thought, what the bloody hell are you doing, you know? And he said, you just broke Johnny Rutherford's 6-lap record. I said, that's good, but leave me here alone. Anyway, but it ended up that night, I think I had 4 runs, and I won all of them, including the feature race. I'm pretty sure Barry Pinchbeck and Danny Davidson started off the rear, I think, and I started off probably around the middle of the field, or back from that. But I won every race I went in, I won. That's the best result I ever had at the Speedway. So anyway, that was 1983, and then when I came back, then I was back helping Jimmy, you know, with the car, and then from there things went awry, and I ended up I give it away in that same year, and that's the last time I ever raced a car at Artsfield. It was 1983.
But you did get back into the speed cars when you bought Lonnie Carruthers' unit.
Yeah, that's right. It's when I became a retread, I retired. So things happened there. I had a pretty bad car accident where some bloke cleaned me up head on in 2006. And as an end result of that's why I don't drive any of the cars anymore. Because the medical people said your head can't take any more knocks. You know, you better sell that car. You better take up another sport. That's what the head of the brain injury unit says anyway. But anyway, after that, then my wife for 26 years left, and the family split up. And I thought, what am I going to do now? You know, so to take all the worries out of my head, I bought the ex-Lonnie Carruthers car, the 83 car, that one up there. And that was the last car he had. That car was built in 1981 in Costa Mesa, California. But that only had I thought it was about it might have been a 2-litre, that it was a 1700cc. I only found that out when we put another set of crankcases in it. I had the guy at Mixed Motors at Northgate measured the crankshaft and the bore and he said, this is only 1700. And everybody, a lot of people here have seen that car get around. It was pretty quick. It was put together pretty well. But that's a parallel torsion bar, an LTC, which stands for Leonard Thomas Carruthers. And I believe, Howard, you knew Lonnie. when you went to America, when you took your car to America, and you saw Lonnie running over there. Yeah, so that's that was a good little car, but we had a bit of a, when old Mannion and I, we went up during the week, we were trying to get an oil pressure problem sorted out with the Autocraft engine in it. I bought a 2742cc, it was 310 horsepower, Autocraft from New Zealand, but I had a lot of problems with that engine. I had this oil pressure problem, and we went up to Boona. I'd rung Beth Hearn to see if I could just take it up, start it or warm it up, and then get on it hard and then get off it, because when I got off it, then the oil pressure, I'd see it drop down to about 10 psi. If I feathered the throttle and watched it, you know, you're just watching it, and then all of a sudden it'd come up again. Anyway, we went up there and we decided the only way, we didn't have any push car, the only way I was going to start it was to tow start it, which I'd done once before up at Davera with a tow strap, just not tied onto the front of the roll cage, just wrap it around it and over itself, and I'd hold it with one end. And we got started the Volkswagen, because it was only 1700cc. Big horsepower, probably about 90. No, but it was a bit more than that. But anyway, with this big Autocraft, the car, I ended up having because it this incident shook up the head injury from back into 8 years previous, and I don't remember much about it. But the car actually, I found out 2 or 3 months later, the car actually went sideways, which the tow point went from down the front to the side, so it rolled the car over. And that's where the head injuries come from, as an end result of that. And the head of the brain injury unit, when I woke up the next morning in the PA hospital, said, "You better get rid of that thing. Your head can't take any of these knocks. You have a serious brain injury, and you better take up another sport. You can't do this." So I had to see him a month after I got out, and I said, "Well, I'm going to tell him about taking up another sport." So I thought about it, and he did ask it actually when he said, "Are you getting rid of that car?" I said, "Yeah, it's going up for sale, when we get this stuff sorted out." He said, "You're taking up another sport?" I said, "Yes, I'm in training now." "Geez," he said, "that's quick. What are you doing?" I said, "Heavyweight boxing." Yes. Now, I love telling this story because everyone laughs. He didn't. He said something like, "If I see you back in this brain injury, you're going to need the whole hospital." But anyway, that was the end of the...
I was taking you to Lismore Speedway one time, and you started telling me about Carruthers cars.
Yes, I was sitting behind you. Di was sitting beside you, and I think Mannion was sitting beside me, and I was telling you because I'd got this email from Lonnie. I first run the car at Kingaroy, and I sent some pictures to him on an email and said, "Can you just disclose, is this the car that you had?" And he said, "Yes, that's..." And I remember telling Howard this, and he's sitting in front of me. It's dark on the way to Lismore, and as I'm telling Howard the story, I could see his shoulders going like... I said, "You're laughing." What Lonnie said was that car was the sister car, the car I've got, the sister car to the O2 Thin car that he rode off at IRP, Indianapolis Raceway Park. And I couldn't work out this O2 Thin car, and I thought, Howard's been to America, because they run all sorts of numbers with numbers and letters and all sorts of stuff. I said, "What's this O2 Thin car?" And I could see I said, "Are you laughing?" He said that was old Red Carruthers, or Lonnie's father, because he built all these cars, these LTCs. He come up to the cage after they got Lonnie out of the wreck at IRP and said, look at the cage, and he said, oh, too thin. So that was the story apparently of the O2.
The whole chassis was made out of 65 thou wall thickness chromoly. It was a lightweight.
Yeah. Anyway, that was the story about the O2 thin car. Yeah.
So what's your involvement now with Speedway?
Oh, well, with the HSAA, I've been in that for some years now, but I do it because I'm trying to put something back into what I got out of Speedway since since 1955, if you like. It's I enjoy doing what I'm doing up at Burner, especially doing the track work and stuff. I did say at a meeting not too long ago, someone's going to have to pick up this. To me, it's called a chief stupid's job, but it's just getting harder and harder because I'm getting closer to 80 now. I don't want to make 80 plus. So, yeah, I just like to be involved in it and see people get enjoyment out of what we do.
In all your racing involvement, did you ever race with any international racing drivers like Howard Revell?
No, I wasn't game. No, that's not true. You and I both run cars down at Grafton. We went to the meeting and so forth, but I've known Howard now for some years. I've used to watch him when he was in bloody saloon cars at Westmead and then the midgets and so forth. He's won more 100 lappers than anyone else in the country. I think. How many have you won now?
4.
4, is it? Yeah. There's been about 6, I think. I think that's all it's
I
been.
ran second and twice more.
Oh, that's a pretty good result. I'd be happy to finish a 100 lapper. Yeah.
Brian Farley, thank you very much.